Well, good evening. My name is Evan Gregory, and this is Bible Answers. Tonight, we're going to be talking about Christians and social media and how they should interact with social media. And so, I'll have some points on the screen and hope that it'll be useful for you. Again, this is brought to you by the North Columbus Church of Christ. We are located in Columbus, Mississippi, and you find out more about us on our website, scrolling below me. That's northcolumbuschristians.com. And again, you'll find out more about us there. You can comment, you can message us on Facebook, on YouTube. We also have a YouTube channel at North Columbus Church of Christ as well. And you'll find our past videos there as well. And so, getting right along into the lesson, again, we're going to be talking about Christians and social media. And if you're watching this right now, I would assume that you probably understand what social media is. It's basically some type of website that allows users to create, share content. You think about Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, Instagram, Snapchat. And I'm sure there's more of these social media apps and websites. And it's basically a part of our life. I don't know the stats offhand, but I think there's billions of people on Facebook. And, we see it where most of us are probably on it pretty regular. We see ads, we see different types of content on there other than people just posting about their daily lives. And so, a lot of times it impacts a good bit of our life, if not most of our life. And so it's important for us to consider, how a Christian should interact from that. Consider it from a spiritual standpoint. And if you remember 2 Timothy chapter 3 and verse 16, it says, all scripture is given by inspiration of God and is profitable for doctrine, for reproof, for correction, and for instruction in righteousness. And so, some questions for us to think about, given that scripture helps us to equip us for all good works. It equips us for doctrine. It equips us in righteousness. And so, knowing that, we ought to look at the Bible and see what the Bible has to say about what the appropriate social media use for a Christian may be. And I just recognized that my battery is about to die. So y'all bear with me here real quick. I'll put this thing on charger so we won't cut off mid-show. And so, again, what is the an appropriate or inappropriate use of social media for us? All right. And so, one thing that we have to think about is what we post, tweet, share, whatever, is public for everyone. And, even to the point where if we post it and we, quote, delete it, somebody could probably find it. And, the reality of that is, we're never going to hide. If we post something as public, there's not going to be a way in which we can hide it from everybody. And we're definitely not going to be able to hide those things from God. 2 Corinthians 5 and verse 10 talks about the day in which all people are going to be held in account for what they do in their body. All right. So nothing is going to be hidden from others. Nothing is going to be hidden from God. And so, we have these private interactions with one another, but when we're dealing with social media, it's specifically a public interaction with others. And so Christians and non-Christians alike are going to see what I post. And so what do you think what will they think, when I post something? Is somebody going to look at my post and say, well, Evan is a Christian? Or are they going to see somebody that's obsessed with politics, or a person who's always complaining, or somebody who's just always doing things, posting things to seek attention? People post their drama between boyfriends and girlfriends and all that nonsense and stuff that people just really shouldn't be putting up publicly. And so people are going to see this, and it's going to form an opinion of, or help to form the opinion of what they think about me. And we think about Ephesians 4 in verse 29 about we're not letting any type of corrupt word leave our mouth. Philippians 2 in verse 14 that we walk blameless, that we should be concerned about the way that others view us. That we need to make sure that we're walking in a different manner than everyone else. And really make sure that when somebody sees us, and especially sees what we're doing on social media, they need to think, or at least be able to kind of get an idea that this person is a Christian. This person seems like a pleasant person. 1 Peter 2 and verse 12 talks about having our conduct honorable amongst the Gentiles. And writers often use the word Gentiles as synonymous with unbelievers. That we walk honorably amongst them. That when they look at us or see us, they see what I post on Facebook, they're going to be like, this person is a Christian, or this person is living in a good manner. This is not some type of corrupt individual. He's not going about living in passions and vice and so on and so forth. And so that's the reality of the situation. Now, you may say, Evan, well, somebody shouldn't judge me on what I put online. That person is never going to see me, never going to meet face to face, or they just need to get over it. They don't know what I'm feeling. They don't know the reasons why I'm posting this stuff. And that may be true. But remember Matthew 15 talking about what comes out of an individual. The things in which someone says, their actions, it is indicative of what is in the heart. That's Matthew 15, verses 18 and 19. So what I'm posting, what I'm saying on social media, what I'm doing on social media is indicative of what is in my heart. And so how you think about how many, so if I'm on Facebook and I'm writing cuss words or whatever, or I'm posting up pictures of either myself being provocatively dressed, or maybe posting up pictures of other people that are dressed provocatively, any of that type of stuff, when they see that on my account or my profile, are they going to see me as a godly person? And it would be hard to say yes to that. The reality of that situation, they're not going to associate a Christian or a devout Christian to that type of stuff being posted. And what we have to recognize is that first impressions do matter. For example, if somebody's scrolling and they may be, they may be a friend of a friend of mine on Facebook, and they may just happen to see my face. They may click on my profile, and they get a few minutes to see what I'm about. And you think about when somebody's interviewing for a job. I can't remember exactly, but there's an article out that talks about basically within the first few minutes of somebody meeting somebody, especially in a job interview, the person that's interviewing this person for a job is already forming an opinion of that individual very quickly. All right. And so, and you think about when somebody, you're going out on a date with somebody. Do you immediately start talking about all the bad stuff in your life? No, and you shouldn't do that. That would just be bad advice to say I'm going to throw out all the bad stuff in my life. I mean, no, nobody does that, or they shouldn't be doing that. And when somebody goes and they're interested in other individuals, they're going to put their best face forward. All right, and there's nothing wrong with that. And there's nothing wrong with talking about your failures, but it is an issue when those things are being brought to a forefront, and that is the only thing that people see. And so people are going to react accordingly to that. If they immediately see something that says that you're a bad person, they're going to react to that. If you're dressed in a certain way and that is associated with, maybe criminal activity or whatever it may be, people are going to react accordingly. And of course, we can have a conversation about whether or not that's right or whether those individuals should be doing that. But that's the reality of the situation. People do judge individuals in that type of circumstance. And so, really, and you think about what Paul has to say, or what Paul, rather than what Paul, instead of what Paul has to say, what Paul was uh, previously before becoming a Christian. There was a time in which, after he became converted, Christians did not want anything to do with him. And it took some time to get used to. And this is, in a sense, the same as this current subject here. People only knew about Paul's previous persecution of Christians, and they reacted accordingly. All right. So I'm bringing that up that when somebody sees my social media and they only see a brief snapshot of myself, they're forming an opinion of me. And think about what our previous passages that are referenced, going back to 1 Peter 2. We ought to conduct ourselves honorable amongst the Gentiles. Do unbelievers, when they see my profile, do they look at somebody who is unhonorable, or somebody who is obviously not a Christian? Would they look at Evan and say, well, why should I listen to him? Because he's doing the very things that he speaks out against. It makes no sense. All right. And so, another thing that we have to be careful about is we have to be careful how far, quote, down the rabbit hole we go on social media. We can go into some very dark corners on social media if we are not careful. And so most social media has some type of censorship, and some has less than others. And so you can see much more than you anticipate. Think about James 1, talks about these temptations and how those temptations work to where it eventually leads to sin if we're not careful. We have to uh, be careful when we're going through social media. And some social media apps I would recommend not even being a part of if you're a Christian. Think about Twitter. I think Twitter probably has the least amount of, well, I would say certain types of censorship that a Christian definitely shouldn't be a part of and seeing. And so, those types of apps I would recommend just stay off of. Nothing good comes out of it. And so, there's some places in which we should stay off of, and some places in which we definitely need to have our guard up. I think about Proverbs 13 and verse 20. It says, he who walks with wise men will be wise, but the companion of fools will be destroyed. If we surround ourselves with ungodly influences, these companion of fools, as the proverb writer writes, we're going to start acting like them. And eventually, we're going to be a fool and be destroyed. And don't ever think that you're just too strong enough to ever be tempted by these influences. Think about David and Bathsheba. David being tempted by her. 2 Timothy 2 and verse 22 tells us to flee youthful lust. Doesn't say to get as close as you can, just as long as you don't actually engage in those things. It says to flee. Don't even be around that stuff. And so we need to get as far away as possible from that. Psalm 119 and verse 115, it says, depart from me, you evildoers, for I will keep the commandments of my God. Do we have that mindset that David have? And he was tempted, just like we said with David, with Bathsheba. And so, even that being the case, he still had this mindset: depart from me, you evildoers. He wanted nothing to do with any type of evil. And so we need to be careful and recognize that we can be tempted by the things in which we see in social media. And you think about, several people have said to me in conversation about this current topic about, for example, old high school flames meeting again on Facebook or some other social media account, in which under normal circumstances they would never see each other again. But these apps allow those people to be connected again, and then those temptations starts, and it can eventually lead to sin. And so again, not just viewing lewd photos or hearing just nonsense being spewed on the social media, but even engaging in personal contact with one another, it can cause problems that would otherwise not exist. So we always have to guard ourselves against those temptations. And so again, we have to be careful about how we present ourselves on social media. Recognize that the whole world is watching, and also we have to guard our own hearts. Recognize that we are don't be drawn down this rabbit hole of temptation and to eventually commit sin because of it. And if you are struggling with that, if there's, if you get on Facebook and you eventually just go down the track of just viewing garbage and which causes you to sin, maybe you should get off Facebook. Same thing for Twitter, same thing for Instagram or Snapchat or whatever it may be. Uh, you, if that is such a problem that without getting off of that, you're going to continue down this road, you just need to give it up. And that's just the best way. And knowing that you can resist that without that being an influence any longer in your life. And so that's just a few thoughts I had. Of course, this wasn't a very lengthy lesson, but I think thought it would be useful for all of us to point out some things which we ought to all consider when being on social media. But again, if you have any questions or comments, leave it here. Obviously, we're on Facebook. We're on social media, so you can comment, question after the lesson, message us on our Facebook page, and I will be posting this on our YouTube page later. Like and subscribe to our YouTube page as well, and you can comment, leave a message there as well. But again, I hope this has been useful for y'all, and I hope that you all have a good night. Thanks.